Alright, so these problems are from 3.1, and these are called multi-stage problems. The general idea with these is they're going to give you a situation and say how many different possibilities could there be, how many possible outcomes would you get. And there's a couple ways to do this. I'll show you how to do it using the tree diagram, but what you'll find is that with many of these problems it's not practical to draw a tree diagram. There are too many possible options. So an easier way, I think, to do it is to, at each problem, ask yourself the following question: how many stages are there to this problem? Or another way of saying is how many decisions, because a lot of times you're going to be deciding something, like on number 2 right there. And then each time you're making a decision, how many choices do you have? Like if you're taking a test, you might have a multiple choice question to answer, and if there are 4 options on each, that means you'd have, well, the answer to that question would be 4. So let's see how to do some of these. So right here it says the band is deciding when to meet. You could meet on Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday. Okay, you could meet at 3 on Tuesday or 4, and the same on Wednesday and the same on Thursday. So if you were to count those options, you would get 6. If you wanted to do it this way down here, you could say, what decisions am I making? I'm making a decision on the day, and I'm making a decision on the time. How many options do I have for the day? I have 3 options: Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Times, because we're multiplying. And then decisions on the time, how many options for that? I have 2, so 3 times 2. And again, we would get 6, just like we got using the tree diagram. Okay, 3 and 5 look very similar. 3 is going to be more straightforward than 5, I'll tell you in advance. So this one says you you flip a coin first of all, so we have a decision to make, and you might say, well, I'm not really deciding when I flip a coin. What they mean is just basically an action. So you have a decision to make or an action about the coin, and you have an action to make about the spinner. Okay, that's answering this first question down here. How many stages are there? There's a coin stage to this action, and there's a spinner stage. How many options do you have for the coin? You could get heads or tails, so that's 2 options. How many options for the spinner? Red, blue, green, yellow, purple, or orange is 6 colors. So 2 times 6, and that would equal 12. So those were more straightforward. These 4 and 5 are not going to be as straightforward. Okay, so let's keep in mind these questions again that we're looking at. How many stages? How many options? Okay, so when you read this, it says a math quiz has 5 questions. Each one has 4 options. You're probably going to be tempted to think, most people will be tempted to think, oh, it's just 5 times 4, it's 20. Okay, and I'll show you why this is not a good option. So let's kind of label this. So question 1, I could choose A, B, C, or D. Okay. Question 2, well, suppose I chose A for question 1. Now for question 2, I could choose A again, or I could choose B, or C, or D, and the same here. Okay, so that's going to be, so keep in mind, for people that thought the answer was 20, right, the answer you're thinking probably is 5 times 4. Notice that we're only on question 2, and we already have 4, 8, 12, we already have 16 options just on question 2. So now question 3, 4 would branch off from here, 4 would branch off from here, 4 from here. So you can see it's going to be way more than 20, and we're not even close to getting to 5 questions yet. That's why it's not a good idea to just blindly multiply the numbers that you see. You really have to think about this. Okay, so let's ask these 2 questions. How many stages or decisions do you need to make on a 5-question quiz? And I kind of gave you the answer. How many decisions are you making? You're making 5 decisions. You're making a decision for each one of those questions, right? When you get to question 1, that's a decision. When you get to question 2, that's another decision, and so on. Okay, so that's the answer to the first question. How many stages are there? There's 5 stages. There's 5 decisions to make on each question. How many options are there each time I make a decision? So on question 1, I have 4 options. On question 2, I also have 4 options. On question 3, I have 4, and I have 4 for all of these. So you could do this, or you could write it as 4 to the 5th power. This number is the number of stages or decisions. Okay, and this number is the number of options per decision or per stage. Okay, so that's the answer, and the answer is, and you saw how that tree diagram is getting really large even by the 3rd question. If you were to actually draw out that whole tree diagram, I don't recommend it, you would get 4 to the 5th power, and that equals 1024. So you can see why it's not a good idea to use a tree diagram for problems like this. Alright, last one, and this is very similar to number 3, but here's the difference. Number 3, we were only spinning once. Now we are spinning 7 times. That's going to completely change the answer. Okay, so same question. A spinner can land on red or blue, so there's only 2 colors this time, or 2 options. we're spinning 7 times and then we're rolling a die. So how many stages are there? Well, there's spin number 1, there's spin 2, there's spin 3, and so on. Each of these are different stages, and then we are rolling the die. So that's another stage. So it looks like there are 7 decisions or actions with the spinner, and there's 1 with the die. How many choices for each? Well, for spin number 1, I have a choice between red and blue. So that's 2 options. Okay, we're answering this second question right here. For spin number 2, I have 2 options. Spin number 3, I have 2 options. And all of these are going to be 2 options. So what's another way of saying 2 times 2 times 2 all those times? You could say 2 to the 7th power. Remember, that number is the number of decisions. This is how many options per decision. I would not recommend memorizing that. I would set it up exactly like you see me setting it up right here. And then how many options for rolling the die? Well, it's telling us it's a 6-sided die, so that's going to be times 6. So our final answer is 2 to the 7th times 6. 2 to the 7th is 128, and 128 times 6 is 700. I believe it's 768. Alright, so these problems are tricky when you first do them, but we will practice some more, and I think it'll start to make sense on the next set. So watch the next video and try some of those.